To whom it may concern. I am writing to you in the hope that you can help me in regard to major welfare issues from a former trainer attached to the Entain track Crayford. The trainer in question is Mr. James Turner, whose kennels are based in Lincolnshire. I wish to keep my name anonymous due to seriousness of the issues and the threats from Turner and his sister in the past. I will go on record if I am assured that Entain can protect me from the backlash. If both Entain and the GBGB refuse to act on the evidence and the seriousness of the welfare issues, then I will be left with no choice but to send the information to someone who will act on it to make sure Turner is never licensed in the greyhound industry again. I began working for Mr. Turner on the 17th of February 2018, just a few months after he was granted his license. At the time we had 17 dogs in the kennels, and he was racing at Perry Bar. At this time the kennels were going well except for the fact that Mr. Turner refused to allow the dogs bowls of water within their kennels, claiming that they can drink out in the paddocks, and the fact they had water on their food that was enough for them. He also refused dogs water in their kennels when getting back from racing. On the 27th of May 2018, he told me, as he went racing, that someone was coming to collect a bitch off him, so she could be exported to Romania for breeding. The bitch in question was called Seagrave Shelley, and she was born October 2015, and she last raced, trialled on the 19th of May 2018 at Perry Bar Stadium. Whilst the person who was taking her to Romania was at the kennels asking if we had any other bitches we wished to export. Me and his mum, who was present at the time, said we don't know of any and that the person should contact James to find out. On the 9th of July 2018, Mr. Turner again informed me that the woman who had taken Shelley is coming to collect a black bitch called Jet to Victory, born November 2015. Jet had last raced on the 7th of July 2018 at Perry Bar Stadium. Since being exported to Romania, Jet to Victory has had a litter of pups, which show their land of birth is Romania. Screenshot from greyhound data showing a puppy born to Jet to Victory, showing the land of birth as Romanian. Things were going well at the kennels and no welfare issues were ever present until a black dog called Riverside Maui, pet name Marley, had a compound fracture of his hock whilst racing in an open race at Crayford on the 3rd of August 2019. Marley was born August 2016, and he entered Mr. Turner's kennels on 1st June 2019. Marley was denied veterinary treatment until the 7th of August, when he was put to sleep due to how bad the break was on his leg and the fact that it had become septic, and he was unable to be saved. During his 4 days of living with a fractured hock, I personally had to give Marley high doses of tramadol and Xanax medication, which I had for my own bitch at home due to the fact that it broke my heart listening to him just scream in pain every time he moved. When I asked James when was he going to take the poor dog to the vets, he told me he would do it when he can be bothered and when he wasn't racing. On the 25th of August 2019, another dog of Mr. Turner's was exported. This time, it was a black dog called Marfield, Jet, a pet name Jet. Jet was born June 2016, and he last raced the 15th of August 2019 at Crayford track. Mr. Turner informed me that Jet was being exported to Pakistan, and that someone would arrive at the kennels that day to collect him, and can I make sure he goes with his passport and stud book. Just a few months after Jet was exported, James came over the kennels and informed myself and another kennel hand that Jet had just won the Pakistan Straight Line Derby. During the last few months of 2019, the number of dogs had increased and there were multiple kennels with 3 dogs living in them. There was also dogs living in wooden sheds, most of which dogs which were actively racing. The sheds were located in the grass paddocks. Some of the dogs that lived within these sheds are Scala Ruth, Maybe Another Time, Auger Boy Angel, Arbor Berry, Crash Bandamo, Dane Blue, but there was many more. These wooden sheds were still on the property as of June 2023. The next welfare issue is probably one of the worst there is and also the most heartbreaking, and it still haunts me to this day. It was 7 a.m. on the 13th of March 2020, and I was going over the kennels like I did every day, and when I finished the kennels the day before at 10:30 p.m., all the dogs were perfectly fine, and everyone had been in the fields for a good hour prior to bed. This day I walked into the kennels, and as I looked into the first double kennel, on the left I noticed a dog on the floor not moving. The dog in question was a black bitch called Balinlau Babs, the pet name Babs. This was very strange for her, seeing as she is normally very excited to see me, and generally would be bouncing up and down waiting for her morning ear tickle. Upon further inspection, I noticed she wasn't breathing, and I had discovered that the bitch had died overnight. The first thing I did was remove her kennel mate Joyful Jake, a fawn and white dog. I phoned Mr. Turner and informed him that Babs was dead. Mr. Turner arrived over the kennels 5 minutes later, where he told me to remove her body from the kennel and wrap it up in some blankets, so if anyone arrived at the kennels except for the other 2 kennel hands, then they wouldn't see her. I asked Mr. Turner whether he would be taking her body to the vets for a post-mortem, to which he replied, "No, fuck the dog, we will bury her body here. I do know where her body is, and should you wish to exhume her body I can pinpoint her location, should you wish. Because if I did that then the GBGB would have put the kennels in lockdown in case she had a disease." Babs was due to run that day, and when I asked Mr. Turner, "What will you tell Crayford?" his reply was she was retired after injuring herself in the paddock, and she will be going to live with a kennel hand as a pet. Babs was withdrawn as lame on the race card, and the green form was filled in and they said she retired due to injury, and they put in the kennel hand details. Screenshot of the race card, which shows Babs was withdrawn lame, when in fact she was dead and already buried. The next welfare issue is in regard to a black and white bitch called its Naylor Lisa, a pet name Lisa. Lisa suffered a compound fracture at the Crayford track on the 14th of March 2020. When Mr. Turner arrived back at the kennels that evening after racing, he informed me Lisa had done her hock and the bones were sticking out. I asked Mr. Turner, "Do you want me to put her in a single kennel?" as at that time she was kennelled with 2 other dogs, Piper Powdeye and Swift Toffee, so they wouldn't stand on her. To which I was told to leave the dog where she lived and fuck them if they stand on her, it doesn't matter, because she can't injure herself anymore. Lisa was left until the 18th of March 2020 before she was taken to see a vet. Luckily Lisa was saved and the vet pinned and plated her hock. Once recovered, she was rehomed by Lincolnshire Greyhound Trust. On the 22nd of April 2020, Mr. Turner's mother sadly passed away after a very short illness. Up until her illness meant she couldn't do the dogs anymore, she had been a leading light for the welfare and rehoming of greyhounds. The only 2 dogs which remained in the kennels, which were anything to do with Mr. Turner's mother, were 2 lifers called Lumpy and Teal. Both were elderly dogs and no one knew how much longer either had to live. The day after Mr. Turner's mother's death, Lumpy and Teal were shipped out to one of the now 5 wooden sheds on the property, because he said, "Why should they have a nice comfy kennel when I can put racers in there and get money for them?" Lumpy and Teal in one of the wooden sheds, which had the door jammed open 24 hours a day, so had no protection from the weather. In June 2020, we had 5 double kennels, which had 3 or 4 dogs living in them. 3 wooden sheds had 3 or 4 dogs living in them. And we had 60 or so dogs at the kennels, even though there was only space for 47 dogs. Some of the dogs living with over the permitted number of dogs per kennel were Rubber Band Boy, Swift Toffee, Auger Boy Angel, Presser Bet, Gilo Big Heart, Piper Powdeye, Bleachwood, Blast Off Maud, Newhouse Gloss, Scala Ruth, Burn Park Shirley, Rathid and Yavande, 6 unregistered pups who at the time were 2 years old, and Stormy Mart. Photos which show 3 dogs living together, including 6, which lived in 2 separate paddocks in wooden sheds. On the 24th of June 2020, I was paddocking dogs ready for being loaded up on the van to go racing, and I had a dog called Velvet Ranger, a pet name Ranger. Ranger had bashed the panel of fencing used for paddocks, and it had come loose, and he had somehow got his foot impaled on the fence, so a spike, which went through his webbing, and slightly through his pad. Before I could get to him, Ranger had pulled his foot free, and had split his webbing in half, and he had sliced a piece of pad off as well. When I informed James what Ranger had done, he said, "Oh, that dog is a fucking idiot, maybe he should learn to calm down." So I said, "I take it you will have to withdraw him then, because you can't race him like that." To which Mr. Turner said, "Oh no, he can fucking run, and if anyone says anything I'll just say I didn't know." Screenshot of me discussing with another kennel hand Ranger injury, and how James knew about it. Because Mr. Turner was always bringing in new dogs and hardly any were leaving, he had to find new places for dogs to be put, because all but 3 of the double kennels had 3 or 4 dogs in them, and all the wooden sheds were full as well. Mr. Turner asked another licensed kennel hand if he wouldn't mind taking a couple of the young dogs, which were just marked up, and going to start trialing soon, to his house and kennel them at his kennels. The 2 dogs moved back to Mr. Turner's kennels after 2 weeks, where they went and trialed straight away, even though they had been in unlicensed kennels. Screenshot of me asking a kennel hand how the 2 dogs he had taken home to his kennels are settling in. On the 11th of December 2020, Mr. Turner moved the dog he called his baby Maze Dreamcatcher, pet name Maisie, into a metal dog crate, which was situated in the kennel kitchen. Whilst she was living in the crate, the only time she had access to a bowl of water was when she was being paddocked, and when I put a bowl of water in the crate, Mr. Turner immediately removed the bowl and told me she will be okay without water, as she can drink when she goes into the paddock. Screenshot I sent to a friend telling them Maisie has been moved into a crate in the kennel kitchen. Mr. Turner had a lovely dark, brindle bitch called Swift Toffee, the pet name Toffee, who ran at the Crayford track on the 8th of December 2020, and during that time she snapped her Achilles tendon in half. The track vet did splint the leg, and informed Mr. Turner that Toffee needs to see a vet ASAP to see if the leg can be saved. When Mr. Turner got back from racing, he put Toffee back in the kennel she shared with Piper Powdye and Warning Light, and said, "Don't move her, the injury isn't that bad, and tomorrow I shall remove the bandage, the vet was just being overkill." When the splint was removed by Mr. Turner the following day, the leg was bad, as in the whole back of the hock was touching the floor, and she walked on that rather than her pads. When myself and another kennel hand questioned Mr. Turner about how she was walking, Mr. Turner told us Toffee will just have to live her life like that, and within a couple of weeks the pain will go, and she will be able to go into the grass paddocks again. Up until the day I left on the 20th of December, Toffee had still not seen a vet, and was denied any pain medication or extra care for her injury, and to this day I have been informed she never did see a vet. Because I was working 14 to 16-hour days, I didn't think it was fair on my own personal dogs to spend all that time in my house, so I was setting my garden up so they could be outside when the weather permitted it. One of the things I did was buy a children's playhouse for my garden, and I was in the process of insulating it and making a proper bed, so my dogs could go in there during the day whilst playing in the garden. But unfortunately, my dogs never got to use the kennel as I called it, because Mr. Turner demanded I put the 2 old dogs Lumpy and Teal in it, as he needs the shed they were currently in for more race dogs. This was the 13th of December 2020, when the temperature was way below zero. Although the door could be closed to the kennel, it was still way below 0 degrees inside, especially during the night. When I asked Mr. Turner, "Can I please have multiple coats for Lumpy until Mr. Turner told me no, they have fur that will be enough to keep them warm. Now, bearing in mind at this time Lumpy was 12 years old and Teal was 13. I felt so bad for them I purchased my own coats for them, and purchased J-cloth bedding myself, because Mr. Turner told me one normal blanket each was more than enough for them. Because anything else will just get muddy and dirty too quickly, and he didn't see why he should buy bedding for them. I did all this because it broke my heart that they were out in that shed freezing cold. Lumpy, white dog, and Teal, black bitch, in the wooden playhouse I had brought for my dogs. That is just some of the individual welfare cases towards his dogs within Mr. Turner's kennels. During 2020, he allowed multiple unlicensed kennel hands to work for him, including Joanne Kemp, who was still working there until the day he stopped racing dogs. The other two kennel hands were a young 16-year-old lad called Charlie and a female called Frankie O'Hagan. Neither of these two kennel hands had any experience working within a racing kennels. And when I questioned Mr. Turner about getting them licensed, he told me not to worry, because no one will ever know, because if anyone from Entain, GBGB, or the local stipe turned up, he would have them go sit down the bottom of the field behind the pig pen until they had gone. Mr. Turner also had no problem stopping dogs, and would do it most race days by feeding the dogs a tin of condensed milk just before being loaded onto the van, and he would then give them a further tin just as he arrived at Crayford before weighing in. When I asked him why does he use condensed milk, Mr. Turner informed me, because if they throw it back up it just looks like bile. So he won't be done for dogs throwing up in the racing kennels at Crayford, and the reason he would stop dogs was so he and some of his owners could gamble them. So it might be worth looking into his betting history, and see if any of his dogs were laid abnormally. I left on the 20th of December 2020 due to personal reasons between myself and Mr. Turner, but he had to get his family involved, which led to police being called for my safety. The day I left there were 64 dogs living within the kennels, 2 of them in metal dog crates, 10 dogs living in wooden sheds, and 36 in double kennels, 3 and 4 dogs within. Screenshot from a kennel hand of Mr. Turner admitting that he had at one point 92 dogs. In 2022, I got back in touch with a kennel hand, who I was close to whilst working there, and she was still at the kennels. She informed me that at one time, there was 97 dogs on the property, and they even had 5 dogs living in wooden sheds. And 4 dogs in all double kennels, and 6 dogs living in dog crates, mag boxes, and the crates on the van only being taken off when a dog within the kennels went racing. The dogs during this time had the bare minimum bedding, and some retired dogs were left with none. Also, since January 2023, this kennel hand had been buying all the dog food, as Mr. Turner refused to buy it. She also informed me that a dog called Limerick, Jet, had torn his gracilize, resulting in it being career-ending, and when a different kennel hand asked, "What is happening to Jet now?" Mr. Turner replied, "Oh, that fucker can race till her drops dead on the track, because that's all he deserves." Now this dog was 6 years old and had raced 104 races for Mr. Turner. He was then put into a dog crate within the kennels and left with 0 bedding, the bare minimum amount of food, because Mr. Turner didn't want to waste it on retired dogs. Another dog, which the kennel hand informed me was being neglected, was Tullivan Charlie, a pet named Vinny. Vinny was a lovely black dog, who had I been working in the kennels still he would have came home with me. Vinny had done a career-ending shoulder injury, and again, was moved from his kennel to live in a metal dog crate, with 0 bedding. When the kennel hand asked Mr. Turner, "Can I give him bedding?" because he had pressure sores on his hips, elbows and hocks. Mr. Turner replied, "No, don't you fucking give that waste of space of a dog bedding, because if you do, I will not only remove it, but make sure he gets treated even worse." Vinny had his last race at Crayford Track on the 17th of July 2022, and at that time he was 6 years old. He is now 7 and was still living in crate, with no bedding and infected pressure sores, when Mr. Turner ceased racing. Swift Loki, the pet name Loki, was dog which Mr. Turner described as his pride and joy. Loki had won many races for Mr. Turner, including Category 1 open hurdle races, and was nominated as Hurdler of the Year at the GBGB Awards in 2021. Just 1 month after the awards, Loki ran his last race at Crayford on the 2nd of April, suffering a broken hock. Mr. Turner put Loki in a metal dog crate upon his return from the track, and that's where Loki stayed until dogs were moved when Mr. Turner ceased to race. Loki was denied vet treatment for his hock and again denied bedding, was seriously underweight, and had pressure sores which were never treated. Loki in the paddock back, when he was in perfect condition whilst I was working there. I would like to bring your attention and to request a proper vet check on a black and white bitch called Warning Light, pet name Amber, who when Mr. Turner ceased racing was sold to another trainer on Crayford. I have been told by a trusted person that Amber is going and maybe even be blind, and if this is the case then she should be retired and there should be a stop put on her until she has that vet check to confirm what I was told. Mr. Turner was also running this dog with the possibility of her being blind or trouble seeing, and again he refused to let a vet see her, as Mr. Turner told the kennel hand it won't make any difference, as the bitch can still race, and I aren't retiring her for that. The kennel hand who told me this information half owned a dog with Mr. Turner, and that dog is now running on Harlow for Diane Jinks. The dog's name is Ballislow Spark, a pet name Sparky. The kennel hand had agreed for a different trainer to take the dog, but she was so scared of how thin and awful he looked. She thought it'd be best to put him with a trainer who knew Mr. Turner personally. Screenshot from the owner of Ballislow Spark admitting to me that she is scared because he is so thin. Various screenshot from different dates and with different people talking about